Survived it. Survived another one. Kind of barely. Ate a bunch of bad food for me last night. Kind of paying for it a little bit, but it was good. Appreciate all the birthday wishes yesterday. And here we go. It's another day. Another day of closing in on a whole pile of truth. Every day is for a lot of people, actually. Now, where to start? What to talk about today? There's a lot of people trying to get a hold of me. There's a man, I've actually listened to this guy's podcast a few times. I think he's ex-military. SEAL. Ex-Navy SEAL and a few other things, I think. Michael Jaco, Florida. I think he got asked Nino if Nino would ask me to pass on my contact information to him. He wants to talk to me about something, so I said, okay, I'm in, I'll do it, because I think this guy knows a handful of stuff too, so I wouldn't mind talking to him. So I guess we're going to do that this weekend. There you go, there's some news. What else? We went down to the river yesterday. One of the things I want to do, we took the dogs in the quads and we wore shorts and actually jumped in the river. It was just warm enough to swim in. That was kind of cool. What else? Videos being taken down. Isn't it amazing? It's so amazing. The videos that they take down because, well, they're concerned about the people, right? But I've got a couple buddies that I've known for years, and their characters, and we just chuck shit at each other nonstop. But you always got that friend or two that sends you the shock flavor videos. But my God, this is just absolutely bizarre. The things that you can see online, and now how people are so numb to them, meaning like a bunch of death videos. There's a whole pile of random death videos of people dying from random accidents, construction, whatever, traffic, all sorts of shit. And it's so common mainstream now to see that. It's kind of sad in a way, but now it's to the point that people are actually trying to make funny memes with these death videos of people dying. And that's okay. That's okay for the ones who apparently seem to be in somewhat control of what's allowed on the internet to be seen. It's just so bizarre to see the stuff that they let go that is allowed for any child of any age to see this shit get numb to as well. But if somebody attempts to share some truth about what somebody in a powerful position may have done to the people, they'll take that down and then try to stop people from being able to post anything else online if they say something against their narrative, which they want to impose on the people. It's pretty upsetting in a way. It can be upsetting. It's very frustrating to watch and be aware of. That's all I'm saying. I had a few videos passed to me the other day that just made me go, oh my God. Really? And that shit is flourishing. That garbage, it's just nasty ass shit. Garbage is flourishing in community today. It's flourishing. Human death to the point they are thinking they are being comedians and making funny meme versions of these videos of people. I mean, we're talking people losing their heads, burning alive, all sorts of effed up shit. And that flavor of shit is flourishing in our community today. Whereas truth, when it comes to our health, etc., you're not allowed because that's a danger to community, right? Do you see what I'm saying? There's so much in our face. There's so much in our face, blatant. The attack on us in our community, right? The quality of life it's a little frustrating, is all I'm saying. Now, speaking of community, we ran into 3 people last night while we were swimming. 2 were from here. One was from Ontario, where they're relative, and they came down here to see some spawning salmon, but there wasn't quite too many of them in that pool at the time yet. And we started talking, and it almost immediately went to the latest of topics that have an effect on all of us. And we were all exactly on the same page, and we had a really interesting conversation. But what they brought to mind was that there is, I think it's called Town Hall BC or Community BC or something. They said is popping up all over the province. People having town hall meetings in their communities. I'm like, oh my God, thank God. Thank God. Because if you want truth and you want better quality of anything, you better start working on getting your community back. Do you even know what your neighbor's name is right now? Do you know what I mean? But I could probably babble on for about 2 or 3 hours straight to give you the examples of how community has been intentionally destroyed. And it has. It has. I think it's got no choice but to turn around and swing the other direction. But it sure has. Especially when that shit went down a couple years ago when they were stopping people from attending their children's sports games. They were stopping people from attending graduations. They were stopping people from attending families' deaths, births. But at the exact same time, big box stores were open. The doors are wide open. Walk on in shoulder to shoulder, as well as all of the fast food chains. Never stopped once. So for me, that's all I needed. My brain still functions pretty good. I can clue in pretty quick to the in-your-face clues, right? But yeah, rambling. I better bite my lip because I could go on that top for quite some time. But I'm just saying, I'm urging everyone to please, God, please create a community right now and make it flourish. That's how you're going to fight back and make quality of life better for you and your kids. Big time. Now, who do we got to here today that's concerned about every single one of us? Don't know what this is about, but I'm going to read it. We're at our morning coffee table. Nothing is practiced, rehearsed. Answers and more questions. Theme of our lives. Steve. First of all, I'd like to thank you again for the efforts you have made regarding the mystery of, quote, the people, end quote, as well as many other subjects. You truly seem to be possessed of a deep-seated drive to find real answers. It is for this reason I'm writing you. You've spoken many times that it is your goal that every person should be heard. You've also discussed the reasons why you will often address subjects outside the realm of the people, and I'm in absolute agreement with your statements. We've been lied to, and are still being lied to, not only about the Sabe, but about almost every other topic of importance that exists in our world. Agreed, across the board. Before I continue, let me tell you a bit about myself. As a child, I became aware that I was somewhat different from many other kids my age. This also applied to my older sister. There were many times when we were younger that we would have extensive conversations without even speaking a word. That's interesting to me. I wonder if this is what the term mind speak is referring to. I'd say so. One example of this ability occurred when my parents were planning on taking one of their planes and flying to a restaurant that was favored by pilots in California. My sister and I were sitting in the family room when I felt a sudden sense of alarm. I knew that my sister also felt it as she looked up at me, even as I was directing my gaze to her. At that moment, my mother walked into the room and stated out loud, "Yes, I know, and I can't talk your father out of it," end quote. Wow. I do believe that my sister and I received our skills from my mother, as she often demonstrated similar abilities. After hearing her comment, I looked back to my sister, who spoke in my mind, "I guess we'll have to wait." Wow. The cause of our alarm and these comments was a sudden, very strong feeling that our parents were in danger. We both knew that it had something to do with the flight they were planning on taking to the Flying Lady restaurant. Our mother had also experienced this fear, but could not talk my father out of going. So we waited. My folks left with their friends, while my sister and I waited. As this time passed, the feeling had suddenly became significantly stronger. We both knew that whatever was going to happen would occur in the next few minutes. Time seemed to slow down when both of us suddenly felt a wave of relief wash over us. Whatever had happened had not resulted in a catastrophic outcome. We both heard my mother's voice in our heads telling us they were okay, and she would call soon. About 15 minutes later, my sister got up and walked towards the phone. She was just about to pick up the receiver when the phone rang. We both knew it was our mother, so I was not surprised when my sister answered the phone by asking, "What happened?" After a very brief conversation, she sent our love to both our parents and hung up. While she had been listening to what my mother was telling her, I had images that played through my head of the front landing gear of the plane failing in some way. This caused the plane to veer off the runway and coming to a rough stop in the grass beside the asphalt. It turns out that the hydraulics for the front landing gear had given out moments after the front wheel touched the ground. As a teenage pilot in training, I was acutely aware that if the hydraulics had failed before that wheel touched down on the ground, the front wheel would have locked in a position that was 90 degrees off from where it should have been. This would have caused the front landing gear to collapse, causing the nose of the plane to plow down the runway. The possibility of this outcome is what had triggered the alarm we had felt earlier. This is just one example of the unusual events that occurred when I was growing up. I bless my mother because whenever we asked her about these unusual events, she would simply tell us that there were people in this world who were in touch with their inner abilities and that we should not be afraid of these things. Thus, it was that my sister and I grew up accepting these things as being normal, at least for us. I should mention that my younger brother did not show any abilities of this nature until he was well into his 30s. The reason why I mention this specific event is that having experienced events like this, along with the support of my mother, has given me the ability to gain a powerful understanding of a wide variety of topics that most people seem to be blissfully unaware. I've never doubted that the Sabe existed, even though I've never had an experience with any of them. My father made sure that all three of us kids had the opportunity to spend an extensive time in the outdoors. He did this by getting a group of fathers together to set up a scout troop that was very different from other troops. While many of them went camping in parks that were not far from local cities, our troop was up hiking and camping in the high country of the Sierra Nevada mountains and the Rockies. I was 12 the first time we hiked and camped above the tree line. At 14, our troop was caught by an unseasonal storm that quickly put us into a serious survival situation. We knew that there was no way we could hike out before the storm hit, and that we were going to have to spend the night camped out before we had any chance of hiking out to safety. The adults came up with a plan to alter our route towards a ranger station with the hope that we'd be able to reach that location late the next afternoon. We set up camp with the tents in a circle around a structure made of tarps that would provide protection from most of the elements if the worst came to pass. That night, one of the adults would come around every hour to make sure everyone was okay. It was around 2 a.m. when the first case of hypothermia was discovered. Everyone was gathered in the shelter where we had built a large fire using wood that had been wrapped in large trash bags in order to keep it dry. We lined the bottom of our shelter with our packs in an attempt to keep out the worst of the winds and the ice that it carried. Our shelter had an opening at the top that allowed smoke from the fire to escape. At first light, we sorted our gear in order to take only the essentials. We burned what we couldn't carry and buried anything that wouldn't burn. There was a coating of ice on everything as we set out towards the ranger station. It was around 4 p.m. when we arrived at the ranger station. I can still remember the looks of incredulity as 6 adults and 18 boys came trudging into that station. We ended up spending the night there and the next morning. A few of the adults caught a ride with one of the rangers back to the point where the vehicles were parked. I found out later that 3 people had died of exposure just a mile and a half from where we had sheltered from the storm. Ugh, that sucks. During my time in the outdoors, I have encountered a wide variety of wildlife. On one occasion in the backcountry of Yosemite, I found myself nose to nose with a rather large brown bear. I was absolutely certain that it was not a black bear, as it was much larger than any black bear had ever set eyes on. Excuse me. Sorry, lost my spot, of course. Many years later, I encountered one of the largest mountain lions I've ever seen. This encounter took place at less than 8 feet. And I spent the first second or two accepting the fact that there wasn't shit that I could do if that big boy became hostile. Fortunately, when he laid eyes on me, he visibly relaxed. The look in his eyes seemed to say, "Oh, it's just a human. I could take him out without exerting myself." At that point, this big cat turned and disappeared into the night. The next several minutes were spent allowing my heart rate to come back down to normal while I acquired a clean set of underwear. I've also had numerous experiences with the supernatural, including one terrifying incident that involved the spirit of an Indian shaman. Several times in my life, I've witnessed UFOs, including one from a distance of about 20 feet. Through all of these events, I have known that there are a lot of people who would not believe a single word I stated should I have decided to share the knowledge of these events with them. Personally, I couldn't care less what others believe about anything I say. I strive to be honest and place a high value on truth and integrity. Now that you know a little bit about me, I'll move on to the reason why I'm writing. As I've watched your videos, I have found that I hold a lot of information regarding the subject matter you have stated that you want to find the answers to. I'm confident that I will be able to provide you with a great deal of information that you're looking for. I will also state that much of the knowledge I have may shatter many of the things you may currently accept as true. Yet I believe that if we do not come to terms with the truth of what has been transpiring in our world, then our time on this world may be very limited. I think it already is. Oh, shit. The camera was falling down. I just fixed it. Let me read this one more time. If you would like to move forward with this sharing of information, reply to this email and let me know. I look forward to hearing from you, Richard. There you go. I hope you caught this reply. I'm all over it, Richard. Share away. Send it. Those skills, there isn't a doubt in my mind. People have those skills and they can speak with each other, communicate with each other. Not a doubt about it. And I also wouldn't be surprised if there are families who I wouldn't be surprised if there were families who have those communicating abilities and they keep it secret. I would not be surprised at all if there were possibly a lot more people out there than we would realize that have those capabilities and they don't want anybody to know. Why? Obviously, that could be threatening to somebody who needs to be in control of your ass, right? So, yeah, you want to share with me, share away. Probably caution you, maybe possibly, depending on what you're going to share with me or what you can do, maybe. I wouldn't probably try to keep your location, who you are, under wraps. I'm thinking maybe possibly, right? You probably already know that, though. So, yeah, I'm very interested. Excuse me, very interested. And on that note, if there's anyone out there who has skills to communicate with somebody that way, and you think you can, send me a message. Contact me. See if I can do it. See if you can do that. If that's even a possibility, I haven't a freaking clue. I know that there's some beings out there in the mountains and forests that can do it at will. And contact people that don't even know what the hell's going on between their ears when they hear these messages. But I'm all over it. If somebody out there feels they can do that to me, with me, I'm open to it. Giver, you got my permission. Get a hold of me. But yeah, Richard, send away, man. Email me again. Let her rip. What's this one? Ooh, this is a frickin' book. Okay, let's see what this is about. I don't know what it's about. Sometimes some people will send me a great big long book and it won't be touching on anything to help anyone, and it won't be touching on anything even remotely close to the subjects we have at hand, right? So there's a chance that I may cut myself off and delete it. You never know. This is titled When I Was a Young Man. And this is from Yellow Eagle. Hi. My clan name is Yellow Eagle. Eagle. My Christian name is John C. John C. Markland. I still don't know why there's a difference. You can tell who you want. Part of a simple post I put in one of your videos, how I started and then decided to tell you about this in this email. All right. You can share what you like. This is just some of my early history as a young man and some memories that you helped me bring back that was lost due to a crippling heart attack. You can believe it or not, I don't care. It's just some facts of my life and some experiences I and my early wife had. Don't let people tell you hard work won't kill you, as I am factual proof of it. It can. Excuse me. I've worked all my life and used what most people act like they don't have common sense. Let me read that again. I've worked all my life and used what most people act like they don't have common sense. I'm not a big man. I'm only 5 foot 4.5 inches. And yes, that half inch counts. And my wife was just barely 5 feet and a hot stick of dynamite if you got on her bad side. But I worked like a big man, and I worked like I was a 6-man crew on some jobs, as that was what we were supposed to have. And I was all 6. I was better off working back in the woods. At least I could work like 2 men and make a living. I'm from Oklahoma. Have family all through the nations and don't look much Indian. Sister says it's genetics, though I have 3 roll number on the Dawes rolls. Don't know what that means. I'm a mixture blood, Cherokee. I also was a fire chief for our sweats for the All Tribes Church in my younger years. I always thought the runt of the family was born last, but no, I was born first. My brother was over 6 feet. Here's a few experiences from what I call home. Just a stitch of woods as far out in the back country as you can get. Well, it's all woods, I guess, and a few other things in my life are in here to prove a point or two. There were others that came and went on those mountains, but this recollection is about me and the missus. Maybe I'll tell the whole story, as it's a mite bit more interesting at a later time. She was an Arkansas Ridge Runner girl. We used to joke about how I could chase her till she tripped me and drugged me off. People wonder and conspire to know about Sabe. Best leave them be unless they accept you. The first people leave them be and respect them. We don't communicate matters, if at all possible, though we have some people that make everything complicated, just like any other people. The simplest way is often the best way. We humans often make things more complicated than we need to. This is what they do. They do what we have forgotten in the sands of time. They speak with their minds, or can sense others around them, though would probably need to focus to do so. We have taboo areas way back in the backwoods in Oklahoma. People aren't allowed in there, period. But the elders used to tell me I was protected, and I've been watched, but didn't fear, was just aware. They know I pose no threat to them. It will shake you at first until you know and understand. My people respect the woods and all the things out there. The city folk do not, nor do they understand. I don't have running water or electricity until about 1.5 years later. Even then, only a light bulb and an old well 100 feet deep, which I bailed water out with a sieve bucket to get our water. It was spring water, like ice out of the ground. The mountain Oklahomas are worn down, but built like giant stair steps, just bluff after bluff, all the way down to the valley bottoms. Lots of boulders, spring creeks, and rattlesnakes. I always laughed to a few friends that our nearest neighbors was the rattler dens. It was about 2 miles down the dirt road to my nearest human neighbor. The back fence line was Arkansas as far as the eye could see. Bobcat, mountain lions, though extremely rare, coons, squirrels, rabbits, possum, a rare coyote, and hogs, as this land was only good for raising hogs, and lots of white-tailed deer. And other critters abound back in those woods, and other things. Had a pet tarantula that I caught at one lake and kept him for a couple of years and let him go when I found a rock pile full of the spiders. We also had copperheads and some other snakes. And sabe. Some call them Bigfoot or Sasquatch. My people have several names for them, but we always just called them Sabo. Sabo? It's spelled Sabo. Sabo people, or secret people, and don't like to talk about them. We had little people, though you never saw them. You just knew when they were around as stuff like a tool or something you just laid down would disappear for a while. The missus, or me, would tell them to bring it back, as it was needed to do something with. We always prayed and put food out for them. Still do it, no matter where we are at, especially during holidays and our gatherings. Probably why they leave us be when we're out and about. We lived out there, in a one-room cabin I built out of sawmill slab wood, thinning trees, and selling firewood. I did this for a living nearly every day. When you spend that much time out in the woods, your other senses get sharper. When you live in the cities, they become dull. Absolutely agree with that one. I lived there many years and was not afraid to go anywhere. One morning around dawn, the missus went to do her business and came back after a few minutes and was a bit upset. I asked what was wrong, and she said that she was being watched while doing her morning business and felt someone or something watching her. She said she looked over her shoulder and saw a big, tall sabo. It's spelled Sabo. S-A-B-O, watching her back in the woods as she was bearing it to the world. She learned not to fear them, as I think they run that pack of dogs off. We never saw them again. The Sabo let her know he was about, but didn't try to scare her or made any move to her. He just made her aware they was there. In Stillwell, the nearest town, I guess was about 18 miles from where we lived, didn't take me long to make that woman an outhouse so she could go in peace. Us men, it doesn't matter much, but a woman sort of takes a bit of and air while they don't get their privacy. Now, as for Stillwell, they had a Sabo run through town in broad daylight. Had a picture of it in the newspaper. And I bet the paper is still around. You could check the archives from back in the 80s and find that paper. Sure made the headlines and a lot of gossip for a while, but then nothing, and everything is back to normal. We just take things in stride. Okay, sleuths, hit that one. I guess I just feel like nothing ever happened. Me, I thought it was wild. But then we sort of lived back in there with them around, and it was just commonplace. We didn't bother them, and they didn't bother us. It was just life, and life went on. Now, I was more afraid of the dog packs that roam those mountains, as they could take a grown man down and are feral. Agreed. Domestic dogs kill over 100 people a year in North America. Had our cabin surrounded a few times. Then the ferals would just suddenly leave in a hurry. Though I had run across some dead dogs in one of the valleys. Though I had run across some dead dogs in one of the valleys, and yes, I'm very aware what a Sabo could do, and not a thing I could do about it. But respect goes both ways, and they can sense you and somehow what you feel or project out. Or maybe they can smell fear, like some animals can. You hardly ever saw one, just knew you were not alone. Sometimes you could smell almost like a skunk, but not a skunk. Sometimes nothing at all. You just knew you weren't alone anymore. I felt safe in the woods. Very seldom did I let something get under my skin. Most fear I had was with the feral packs. Not even the hogs bothered me. You just had to know their nature, and these hogs knew humans well. People let their hogs out and run the mountains, then they drive them up with dogs. The dogs are trained so that they would zip in and grab a gilt, and the sow would follow them to a pen. Rattlers were the biggest problem, and some people hunted them for their skins, as they had a bounty on rattlesnakes. A person could get $15 a skin back then, but only $13.50 for a rick of firewood. And that was no hulls, no culls, and brought it in and stacked in the yard. There were a few places that you could take it to and get paid. I do know that some animals, like one of my best friends, his name is Gizmo, I can try and think at him, and sometimes he responds. I would have died for sure if it wasn't for him keeping me awake till the ambulance got to where I live. He went totally nuts when they were going to take me, and they had to lock him in another room. I live in the outskirts of a very small rural town now, a good 45 minutes from any town hospital. When I came home, I was so weak, like a kitten. He would wake me for my meds. The missus couldn't wake me, but he could. Then he almost died on me 3 times from canine Rocky Mountain spotted fever, from a tick bite. He just got sick one day, quit eating, quit drinking, and got so weak and unresponsive. I rushed him to the vet. Excuse me, the vet misdiagnosed him. Excuse me, and it nearly killed him again. I hand-fed him with a spoon and watered him with an eyedropper for months, around the clock, just like a baby. Took him out to do his business and held him, cleaned him, and helped him get back to living. Though I did tell him if he wanted to go. I thought this to him. He would just look at me strangely. I guess he decided to stay because I really needed him if would just try and stay. This has taken now about 1.5 years. One of my daughters calls me a dog whisperer. I just laugh. And no, I tell her I just pay my debts, if at all possible. My people believe in balance. The old laws were set that way too. He finally can get up on the porch by himself, though the step is only 6 inches high. Funny thing, though, I got him for the missus, and he took up with me. Once when the missus and I were having a hard time getting food out on the mountain, we had a leg of a deer show up on the top of the small cabin I'd built. Wow. We got up, and there it was. Still had the hide on it. She told me friends had left it there for us. We lived a very simple life, and I do miss it. And now I'm just an old recluse, disabled and missing those days. Now I game on a computer to keep my focus and talk to friends from around the world. And funny, one of my friends' monikers is Yeti, and another one is called Bigfoot. Life is strange. I had a heart attack that robbed me of many things, and over the years my memories are coming back. You brought a whole chapter back to me, and I can't thank you enough. Listening to those experiences jogged something deep in me and brought it all back to me. Though if I go back there, it is always peaceful, and I feel at home there. I've been told to come back home by some of the families there, but she couldn't due to health problems. She had gotten an infection from a pond we used to swim in, and it nearly killed her. And I had to get her out of there. I haven't told anyone about the Sabo, but a few friends had come to live with us, and they would joke about them not understanding. They left the mountain after a few months. Some didn't stay long, but a few days, and wouldn't come back, except maybe a day, and then go back before nightfall. Though I know the Sabo are still there, and I wonder if they would still know me sometimes. And now I understand we didn't go looking for their places, though I have a feeling they travel a bit, have winter places and summer places, and follow the game herds, or pick up a hog or two. And sometimes there is good and bad amongst all peoples. Respect is earned and also given. I thank the Creator for making that part of my life. Fear is a tool, but remember, it's also just a clingy mist. Walk out of it into the light, then it just fades away. There's nothing to fear but fear itself. Depression is a fog, and a person has to see it for what it is. It's like falling in a hole. Get up and walk out of it. Also, back into the light. It will bother you no more. I've walked those mountains, showered in a cold creek waterfalls after a rain, walked in the heat when the dust was ankle deep, and had a thunderstorm wash me clean. It's a hard life, but was one of the best parts of life except when my daughters were born. Go in peace, brother, and don't fear. Just respect, listen to what they are saying, and let them know you mean no harm. You can tell the bad ones as the good ones. You can tell the bad ones as the good ones will let you be. Just leave if the bad ones warn you away. Better to be a good neighbor than an enemy you don't want. Well, I have more I could tell you, and some of this may seem jumbled a bit, but it's as my memories come back to me while doing some of this. Some is recent, some is from many years ago. Have a new missus now, though more like a girlfriend that comes around and told me if I died again, she was going to bring me back and kill me for dying. I guess I better listen to her. Those little short women are dangerous. She's like a small bottle of nitro, LOL, when you set her off. Yep, she's just under 5 feet, and don't talk about her being short. She just might lay into you. There's been a night or two early in the spring when it smelled like skunk outside, and the hair on my neck would stand up. Not really afraid of them, but these are different somehow. They know I'm not afraid of them, too, but they don't hang around much. Though, these get the dogs going. I have 2 pits outside and an old Sharpie Border Collie mix. She won't go out when they are around. They stare back into the dark or into the hayfields. I do throw fruits and veggies out there on occasion. Never had a problem yet, though I hear growling. But being my hearing isn't what it used to be, I can't tell if it's the pit bulls growling or something else. And this is in the house with the doors closed. Ooh. When I pray, it all seems to ease up, and then it quiets down again. Though the smells stay around for a while, I pray for them also. As I said, respect goes a long way. Don't give up. You don't just get their stories. Don't give up. Don't just get their stories. This helps people in a myriad number of ways to cope with what they are trying to make sense of these encounters. Hoping people listen to their instincts out there. Most people forget they have them. If you want, when I'm able to type again, I'll write some more about the other people and some of what they had to say about what they call Bigfoot and the Deserado youth ranch we're going to build. My hands are one of the many reasons I can't work anymore, so it takes me a while to type this all out. And I'll tell you about one of the taboo areas that these people went into. It was quite the adventure for a couple of years. Some of them, let's say, the place left a lasting impression on them, and some have already passed away, a few before their time. And everyone calls me Dirty Bird online. I do have a Discord server too, so we could chat if you had any questions. As typing really makes my hands hurt. Well, it's more like pecking at the keys. I love watching you fish. I used to fish every day. Be careful out there and respect your neighbors and listen to your horses. You have a rapport with that 4-legged friend that goes beyond words. Trust me, I know. Just talk without using your mouth and meet halfway. It takes time and practice. Watch the expression your friend will do. It might surprise you. Do so gently, so as not to shout. Wow, there you go. I thoroughly enjoyed reading that, Mr. Yellow Eagle. There's a lot of good, positive messages in there for everybody, isn't there? Right? There's a lot. And I agree with everything you said. I'd love to hear more from you. Love to. I love hearing from our elders, especially our indigenous people to the lands. I love to hear from them. And, it's so hard for me to hook up with people and talk live back and forth. But, how can we get you to share more easily without having to type it out? Excuse me. I guess there's a talk to text thing too. If somebody wants to give you a hand with that. But in the meantime, please email me back again for sure. I forget so much. I get so many emails and I share so many voices every single day. I'm like, oh man, I got to get a hold of that person. And then I end up editing the video, throwing it down. I get out of here, start my day, carry on, open up more emails. I get a million messages a day. And I lose a lot of people I want to get contact with. And it's very frustrating for me. But I'd love to hear more from you, if you would, if you could. And if I forget to get a hold of you, please email me again at least and say, hey, asshole, get a hold of me, something. All right? Now, it's a long email, but it didn't seem long reading it to me. I could have read forever if you kept writing. Here's another one. Did I read this already? This person's been waiting a while to be heard, I believe. 6 cents, ? Yellowstone, Wyoming. From Wyoming Chief. All right. I'm sending you this email from my phone because my computer is down, and I'm also using my voice to text. So please excuse any grammatical errors. All good. I've been following you on YouTube for several months now. Not even sure how I came upon your channel. First story I heard you read with about a hunting incident, or the guy took off and ran, threw the rifle at you, and told you to shoot the bear in the head. My childhood best friend. I didn't have a rifle. Bear came charging at us from about 20 yards, and he threw the gun in the air running. Yeah, I ended up shooting that thing a few times. I literally was rolling in stitches. Absolutely hilarious. Yes, it wasn't funny at the time. And then from the next few videos I watched, where you were showing evidence, but you were never really mentioning what it was that you were talking about, just the fact that we knew. And as soon as you said that, I knew exactly what you were referring to. My story began about 14 years ago. While I was out deer hunting on the South Fork of the Shoshone River, just outside of Yellowstone, NP. I had not gotten anything that day or previously, but just before the sun went down, my buddy flushed out a huge buck entirely by accident as he was walking back to the truck. He shot it and saw it right off, but he knew he'd gotten a solid hit. Okay, I think he meant and saw it run off, but he knew he'd gotten a solid hit on it. So he came, got me, and we went over to where he shot it, found the obvious signs of blood everywhere. So we stayed there for a few minutes, smoked a couple cigarettes to hopefully let the deer bed down or stop and lay down and bleed out, which we did. And after securing permission from the landowner, we were able to cross onto his property and 25 yards inside his property. And 25 yards inside his property, we found his deer. Right on. Well, while he field dressed it, I went back and brought the pickup closer so we could drag the deer to the truck, which we did. And just before we were getting ready to leave, I realized that I had left my gloves on the ground back with where we dressed the deer out. So I told my buddy, hang on for a minute, and I was going to run back and grab them. It was about 50 yards away from where the truck was parked. I hurried on down there, and as I picked up those gloves, I stood up and literally had every hair on my body stand up. It was almost like static electricity kind of feeling. And I've always had that kind of a sixth sense that I've heard you talk about. I spent nearly 20 years working as a paramedic in both the rural and urban settings. Can you develop that awareness, especially when you go into situations that aren't exactly under control? Anyway, with this weird feeling that came over me, I just knew I was being watched. I slowly turned and scanned everything around me to see if maybe I was just picking up on the feeling that there was a bear. After what I would say about a minute to 2 minutes, I realized if something was out there, I couldn't see it, but something in my head was telling me that I was in danger. I truly thought that there was a bear, and we're in grizzly country here, was closing in on the gut pile. And of course, I was completely unarmed at that point, other than my small knife because I'd left my rifle and handgun back at the truck. So at this point, I did another quick scan, didn't see anything, didn't hear anything, which was kind of strange. It was just really, really quiet. Anyway, I started moving back towards the truck. I started moving back towards the truck quickly and be as obvious as I could be. I was trying to talk and make some noise, but I was struggling to say anything out of fear, I guess. Wow. Because I thought if it was a bear, I would make noise and he would be aware of me and would know that I'm leaving that gut pile for him. I got near the truck. I started relaxing. I didn't have that hair standing up on the back of my neck feeling. Oh, but I was still feeling really uneasy, and the thought in my head was, leave, get out of here. When I got back to the truck, my buddy looked at me and asked what was wrong, because I guess it was written all over my face that I was upset. I told him that I'd had a weird feeling, and I thought maybe there might be a bear in the vicinity because we had seen lots of sign that day. He kind of looked at me strangely, and then said, well, what did the landowner have to say? I looked at him puzzled because I had no idea what he was talking about. We talked to the landowner after shooting the deer to secure permission to cross into his woodlot. But that was at his house, out close to the highway. So I asked him what he talking about. And he said that he saw what he thought was the landowner coming from where his house would be through the woods to where I was at. And he saw him kind of disappeared back farther into the woods, where I should have been. I was completely confused at that point because I hadn't seen anybody, and I hadn't heard anybody. And there was enough leaves and such on the ground that it would be difficult for someone to walk quietly. I just kind of shook it off at that point, thinking that I let my imagination get the best of me, and it probably was what I was sensing was the owner coming through the woods to check on us. Anyway, as we proceeded to leave, we had to stop back at the landowner's house to give him the portion of the state tag so he got reimbursed. My buddy went up to the door to leave his tag, and the owner greeted him at the door. I got out of the truck at that point, and I walked up there, and they were already in conversation, and I realized it wasn't the landowner that my friend saw going through the woods. So we had a short discussion with the landowner and told him what had happened and what I had felt and everything. And he just kind of looked at me and chuckled a bit and said, "Oh, I see you met my friend." I asked him, "Who was that?" "No," he said. No, not a friend, but a friend that he sees in the woods every once in a while." At that point, my buddy and I realized what he was talking about. Later that night, I was at my buddy's house before heading back home, and we were talking about this whole encounter. And his wife was the first one to bring it up and say it out loud, the word Bigfoot. And for some reason, when she actually said it out loud, I just felt this overwhelming terror. Shortly thereafter, I went home, and a few days later, I went to go hunting again in that same area. And when I got down there, I was about 3 miles from where my buddy had got his deer. As I parked and started walking in woods where I'm trying to fix the typos. And the base of the mountain, where the woods were and the base of the mountain was, I just had this overwhelming feeling like I did the previous time. And something was telling me, don't go by myself. I did listen to that sixth sense, and I got right back in my truck, went home, and never talked about it again. My buddy's wife would bring it up every once in a while, but I would always just change the subject. Leave the room or whatever. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't set foot back in those woods hunting since that day. The only reason I finally decided to write you was because of an incident that happened the other night. I was up in Billings, Montana, and left there at about 11 p.m. to drive back to Cody where I lived. And I have some missing time that night. But that's a whole other story. Again, thank you for sharing this and listening. Makes me feel a little better. I'm not the only one. And maybe after getting this off my chest, I can finally get back out in the mountains around here. John in Cody, Wyoming. John, I hope so too, man. Because that's That's a big motivation for me to do this shit, right? Is to get my fellow people, my people, back in the woods and not quit what they love to do. That's the fact of life. Being forced to quit what you love to do because you do not have any information or knowledge on what's really going on. And then you get slapped in the face with it, and then it scares the piss out of you. And then you quit. And then you don't get to do what you love to do, which means you lose. The ultimate loss, right? To me, that's one of the ultimate losses in life, is when you don't do what you love to do. Then why are we here? You know what I mean? Anyway, there we go. We got some voices heard, some long ones. We got them heard. And every single person we heard from today, I hope you get back to me again, us again, in the future, and let us know how it's going. And to our previous First Nations gentlemen, I hope you get back to us with more knowledge. I really want to hear it. I want to hear everything. And man, I hope you, last emailer, just get back in the woods. Just go do it. Take baby steps. If it feels right, it's right. If it feels wrong, it's wrong. But that's the way it goes with everything in life. Walking down a back alley, whatever. About to cross a road, if it feels right, it's right. If it doesn't, don't do it. But it doesn't mean you quit altogether, right? Just take baby steps. That's what I did. That's what I did until I finally learned that speaking out loud my intentions made a difference, I believe. Even though I still get a fair amount of stuff happen to me a year, but it's manageable so far, right? Nothing's really overly upsetting or terrifying for me. I've had a couple times where I just could not be somewhere. I've never had a voice in my head telling me shit. It's just been feelings for me, and I act on my feelings, right? And acting on my feelings, especially this past year, has brought me good fortune as well. It's not just bad. It's not just my sixth sense doesn't just alert me to danger or the possibility of doing something wrong. It also alerts me to doing the right thing. And that's pretty incredible once you get in tune with that. And I had 2 very blatant examples of that this fall. And I find as well, as time goes on, and the more voices I hear, and the more I learn, I'm getting way more in tune with my intuition, my sixth sense, way more. I'm going to give you, for anybody who doesn't know, or I might have said it once before, I'm going to give you these 2 examples, all right, real quick, that is very odd to me, but happened to me this past fall. So I'm up north by myself. I'm after this great big huge buck that I became aware of. Haven't seen him physically yet, and there's hardly any deer around, and it's tough going. I got to go up the side of this mountain, all over this mountain nonstop, which I did for a couple weeks straight, trying to get this one specific deer. Anyway, he was down below. I ran into another local guy who was a hunting guide, and he had backpacked a bale of alfalfa into the spot. It turns out we're hunting the same spot. We met each other, ended up talking for a couple hours. Awesome dude. And I already had trail cameras laid out all over the place. And that prior evening, not too far from where he put his alfalfa down in the timber, I had that great big buck with the only doe in the area, hot doe. For all you who are a hunter, you're going to understand this, and you're going to go, what the hell? But a lot of people who are non-hunters might have a little confusion at what I'm about to share. So as a hunter, the previous evening, and this one particular monstrous old buck that I was obsessing about and I really wanted to get, I'm running out of time, and I've been donating a couple of weeks to getting him, pushing on my second week. And I knew he was down below at the bottom of the mountain that previous day with that one hot doe on my trail camera. So you would have to be a dumbass to not hunt there in the morning, right? Knowing that that's where they're hanging out, bottom of the mountain, right? And you've been searching for this deer for days, all day, like a dog, solo in the snow, freezing, sweating, blizzards, everything carrying on. And then the next morning, any experienced hunter would know to slip into that spot in the bottom of the mountain in the first light in the morning to get that buck with that hot doe. Anybody That's absolute common sense. You'd be an idiot to not go down to the bottom of the mountain where he was with that hot doe. Right? Especially when there was no other does there in the whole area. So, what did I do? I got up, I left the vehicle, I started walking up the trail in the dark, starting to get light out, and my gut, my intuition starts screaming at me to get up the mountain. Just go now. Not a voice, just a feeling. And I know at this stage of the game in life to listen to my gut. And I never hike fast, ever, when it's freezing cold, especially first in the morning, because then you get wet. And when you hike to your destination, you want to sit and wait for a while, you instantly freeze. You can't sit. So I never hike fast. I was hiking so fast, I was almost half jogging, and I had sweat dripping off of my brows and my chin. First thing in the morning, which is I never, ever do that. It's stupid. I couldn't get up the mountain to my little perch point fast enough. It's really bizarre. But I knew I had to get there, and I had to get there quick. Weird, right? And I acted on it. I went up there. There was that one doe. There was her 2 yearling fawns, and there was that great big huge buck, and I ended up getting him. What? Right? Moving along. Second time. And then I got home. I've been gone for 2 weeks. I just get home. And to get home, I got to drive a day and a half. And then I got to take the ferry home and then drive all the way back here. It's a major expedition, right? I just get home. I'm barely unpacked. And there's only 3 days left in the season for my blacktail deer hunting spot near Squamish, Whistler, British Columbia. I looked at Sarah. My gut was screaming, I gotta go. She's like, what? I think it's gonna happen. I gotta go to my blacktail spot. She's like, what? No, I'm not kidding. I gotta go. And it turns out I could. Who does it? What? Who does that? And my gut was screaming at me, you gotta go. You gotta go to your spot. And I got trail cameras there all year. It's a spot that I've been intimate with for the past 18 years. I mean, we're talking, think about it. I'm gone for over 2 weeks. Exhausted. I just got home. And now I'm going to turn around and travel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, including ferry lineup and waiting and taking the boat. Now I'm going to travel and turn around and backtrack all the way back and get up in the morning and when I got up in the morning, there was that day and one other day left till the season closed. And I went up to my spot, walked the trail, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, I shot a massive, monstrous record-book black-tailed deer with my bow. Weird, right? But that was anyway. Sorry about that little bit of a babble there. But that was 2 examples of my gut screaming at me to do something, and I followed it and I did it. But it wasn't words, it was a feeling. Those were feelings. Very bizarre. Not really, I shouldn't say very bizarre for me. It's exciting. It's exciting to have that happen. It's very, very cool to listen to yourself when it's something that may be absolutely outrageous and doesn't make any sense at all, but your gut's screaming at you to act on it, and you do, and it was exactly correct, and it was the right thing to do. It's very bizarre. It's very exciting. Anyway, sorry about that ramble-babble, but and all you non-hunters out there that get offended by people hunting for their food, for their table fare, you're in the wrong place. All right? Offended culture has no future here. If you're a member of offended culture or support it in any way, and you're here, your days are probably numbered before you drive yourself insane, okay? And then we discover you and get you out of the room. Offended culture is a cancer in society. Community. Anyway, there you go. I gotta shut my mouth and I gotta carry on. Where am I going today? Okay, I'm gonna keep working on my riding ring. And then we gotta pack up stuff and head to the coast and get the shit beat out of us on the water. And then from there, I'll be sharing more voices. And I think I'm going to do that Michael Jaco's podcast. I think he's only able to stream on Rumble because the mainstream controllers, he's a truth sharer. And they've deleted him and gonged him from being able to be on YouTube or anywhere else. So we get that done. He posts it up. I'll give you a link in the community page. And I got lots more other shit coming up, but I got to get going. I'm rambling like a real ding-dong right now. So, share my story at howtohunt.com. She still has them, I believe. I think she still has them left. They're going around the planet. Send me a picture of your decal and tell me where you are in the world. And I'll post that up the community page too, all right? So everything you may need or inquire about is in the video description below. I'll be back.